Hi everyone, my name is Graziella Iezzi. I'm a senior business application engineer at Booking.com. I think I didn't speak in person since 2019, so I'm a bit anxious. But so today I'm gonna talk about very basics what compare object does. So as for the name, it just compare two sets of objects. The importance of which one is the first object, which one is the second object, is something that we will figure out just in a bit when I'll show you some of the results, how those objects are compared. What happens when you use it is that compare object would get what is the type of the object and try to find if there is any comparison method within the type of those objects, whatever that is. If it doesn't, there is, I don't know, the object is complex and it doesn't know how to resolve that, it will default to the toString function, basically, and it will compare just as a strings. Now, this is not ideal all the time because you may want to control or use something different. So you are also able to pass a set of properties which, depending on what use case, can be one or they can be multiple, and the comparison is only made through those properties that you define. Why do I use it? Well, in my job, it's not rare that I need to look at these huge CSVs. Sometimes they come from AD. I need to list of users, you know. You get a bunch of people from AD, then a bunch of other people from some third-party applications or multiple third-party applications, and you need to compare this data to see if these people are everywhere or only in some places. So what I normally do, I just, call the APIs of those applications, get the results back, maybe use all the commandlets from PowerShell to get people from AD, whatever attributes I need. And then I just needed an easy way to don't look at those files at all and just get the results from them. So imagine files with 15,000 records and stuff like that. No one wants to look at spreadsheets anyway. So what I did, and I found that PowerShell had this very useful commandlet. So in my case, my objects are two CSVs that I'm going to show to you. Just stupid examples. Imagine this comes from AD. You have some account name, the status of the user, the email, the corporate email, names, first name, last name. The other one comes from whatever application, things about like Slack, Jira, Workday, whatever your company use, your in-house database, whatever it is. As you can see, the header of those files look different. So you have, instead of some account name, you have an ID. Instead of first name, last name, you have a full name, a role that may give you permissions to do something. So the only thing I can use is emails. Basically, the parameter, I prepared the Nash table to be able to pass those values. So I'm going to show to you. The first one is called reference object, which is basically the first one you won't compare it from. The other one is called, which is called the difference object, which is the one you want to compare the reference to. And then I pass the property as email. Now, if I run these, and then I just show it to you how the result looks like. So you see we have the email and this thing called side indicator. What that means is that Eric and Fiona here, they come from the first file. So the one facing left is the first file you have passed to compare object. And George here comes from the other one. So those only appear in the first one, and George only appears in the second one. Now, an interesting switch that is nice, depending what you have to do, but basically pass-through allows you to have the object as entirely, as a whole, not just the email, which is the property you were compared to. So if we do this, our result looks like that. So imagine, yes, you want to know the name or the emails of those people, but you also want to know whatever is their role or permissions, or if they are active or not. So you can use also those columns. If you want, sometimes you also want the ones that are in both to compare them. You would use include equals, and what that means is that you will get all of them. So those are all the people compressed from both files, and you can see that you have equals equals, which means the first 4, they are in both files. Just sometimes you need some of those as well. And the other one, each is called exclude different. Maybe you really just want the equal ones. I don't know, you need to know how many licenses you need to buy next year or things like that. So sometimes it's useful to have it. And as you can see, you just have those. So it's very useful. Now, because those are compared object, my variable is basically an array. Oops. Let's do this. Get type. I always do get type all the time. Oops, if I can type. Just to be sure I'm doing things right. So because the results of this compare object is an array, in my case, you can query that. So imagine you get all of them, but then you want only the ones from the first file. So what you do, you can use where object to query the site indicator, which is just another parameter in your object. And you can do fancy thing like, I don't know, give me only this with the status like that, with this role, just to then have these pretty reports that you can show to your boss. So if you do this, then your result will be only the people on this side, which comes from the first one. Those are just a few of the switch that are available. Of course, you can go to the Microsoft documentation and look at all of them. This is just, very quick and easy how to get started with these things. That's me. Thank you.
No. All right. So I assume every one of you have seen someone writing some kind of code during this conference. And I quite often want to demo PowerShell code from the PowerShell terminal. And if I had a PowerShell terminal, that would be a lot easier. So the background here, I got a lot of questions. I've had a few people talk to me after my session yesterday, where I demoed my bicep module. And yeah, maybe I can have another computer. Let's do that. Thank you. All right. Now I have 2 computers. Oh, I can have 2. On my session yesterday, I wrote some code in the terminal, and I did it really fast, and I have had quite a few people complimenting me about how fast I could type. And I have a confession to make. I'm really bad at typing. Awesome. Let's clear this. All right, I think we're good. So what I do is that I can write stuff. And not everyone knows this, but I'm actually a really bad typist. Thing is that I have a confession to make. I wrote a small module that lets me pre-record commands, and I can type them, and I can choose to either have them typed timed or manual. So now I'm in manual mode, which means that whenever I press my hotkey on my keyboard, I load my next command. And whenever I press a key on my keyboard, any key, it just types the next character, which means that I can, whenever I'm done, I can just press enter. And if I want to write something like this, I can just use my terminal as usual. So now I'm free to do whatever I want. I have my history, so I can go up and down through the commands. And whenever I'm ready to do the next demo command, I just hit Control-D, which is my hotkey. And now I can hack away on the keyboard and type my command, which actually works quite handy. As you can see, the module is called StageCoder, and I have a few commands in it. So if I want to create a new demo, I use the command setDemo. I give it an array of strings. So in this case, I give it 2 strings. Now I can type, and really fast. I give it a chord, in this case, Control-Shift-D, and a timing of instant. So if I do that, what's happening now is that we're using PSReadLine to add a PSReadLine key handler. So if I do Control-Shift-D, it just types out the next command in my demo. And again, so I can do it manual. Here, I can use the timing instant, or I can use timing manual. If I use manual, I can type out my commands manually, or if I use instant or timed, it will just instant will write it really fast, and timed will do a random pause between each letter, so it looks like I'm typing. And on top of that, I store like the index of my demo in a environment variable. So I use myPosh to show the demo index in my prompt, so I know which command I am in. And I can do R0 or reset demo 0 to go back to index 0, or reset, as you can see, I'm not a very good typer, index 5, and that takes me to command 5, or like index 1, and now I can type better. And that's it.
Perfectly, thank you all for showing up. My name is Ritter. I'm working as a system engineer for CanCom, and today I'm going to show you some performance tweakings that I have discovered and also have written about in my blog. Maybe later I'll show a little Linktree link, so you could follow along if you like. So let's go ahead. The first test I want to do is some regarding file reading, as you can see, on how we could iterate a file line by line super fast. I have tested several methods, like you can see right here down below. So at first, get content should be known for everyone here in the room. Then some .NET methods. And lastly, but not least, we have the switch statement with the file parameter. Probably somebody knows, maybe some not. I also discovered newly. So let's have a list, which is quite largely. So we have 500,000 lines. I could give you a quick shot of this. It's quite intense, 68 MB, I think it was. And yeah, the structure looks like this, but we don't care about the content. We just want to iterate through as fast as possible. So here I have my little test for this, where I use all the methods. Yeah, sure. I would go method by method, once by once. So I will run it right now, so while it runs, I can explain the code. So I just have here the file, like I said. I initialize stopwatch, and then I do the test 2 times. I could do it more often, but we don't have time for this. Nobody has time. So the first one is the for each, like you can see right here. If you need a little bit larger, just shout out. So just simple, I use the get content, I iterate with for each loop, line by line, counter lines, and stop the watch. And the next one is the read all lines method from system.io.file. Like here, you read it once, and then you iterate straight through. Then we have the stream reader. So we use the stream reader class, initialize them. Then we go with the method readLine and put it in a while loop until it's finished. When it's finished, we are good to go. Stopping the clock even there also. Having the peak. Maybe Evgeny could tell something about the peak and the end of stream methods, because I ripped it out of his blog, I guess. So if you have any further questions going deeper, you can head over to him. But for this case, okay, it's able to read the lines, and I just want to know how fast is it. And lastly, we have the switch file statement right up to here. So we just put a switch command, put dash file, in the parentheses we put a file path, and with the default block, every section gets iterated through. We count the lines, and we probably have a good test for this or not. Let's see. The run passed perfectly, and then we could now group them and just measure the average of the two runs to see a result. Hopefully, yes, it does. So, like you can see, get content was quite a slowest. Read all lines, it's kind of fast. With the stream reader, you're a bit faster in the classic way I like to describe. All the content that you see here will push to GitHub and announce this on Twitter or something like that. So I will also put the notebook so you can do the run test for your own. And surprisingly, the switch command with the file parameter is quietly the largest, the fastest, sorry. Yeah, that was the file reading for this. I think I have some more time, so we could do another test, if you like. Then I thought, okay, what's about sort unique? Okay, perfect. Okay. So I just try to put the many content in here. So yeah. Okay, then we have the sort unique. I would like to sort a list uniquely. So I now have no any more duplicates in it, and I used the sort object unique, sort object pipe to get unique, and lastly the data type hash set, because the hash set only can contains unique values. So then at first I generate some data. I just probably a little bit larger. I just generate a little list, a small list, a medium-sized list, and a large list. As you can see, the medium-sized is about 10,000 items, the smallest 500, and the largest 20,000 items. So let us run this and go line by line. I have just a color in the first one, animal type in the last one, and then I generate the string, put it to the list, and add a random number at the end from 1 to 10, so that I have duplicates, but not that many, hopefully. So this test also passed perfectly. And then we had the generation passed, and now we have the tests. So, looks more complicated than it really is. Like you can see here, I just have my list size, which is split into list small, list medium, list large. And then I say, okay, for each list size, put up the sort object unique. Here's the sort object get unique. And lastly, we have here the hash set. So as we do the test right now, I should have started this earlier, but hopefully this should take not this much time. And afterwards, okay, we just sort that we see, okay, what is the fastest for the enumerator, because I generate a hash set, just to sort them accordingly. As it runs, any questions so far? Okay, sorry, time's up. We have our results. You gotta be faster. So, as you can see, for a small list, we can say, okay, sort object get unique is quite the fastest, even when it gets passed through the pipeline. To be honest, I've also run this test several times. Sort object and sort object get unique tend to be switching state, who's the winner. But hash set was always the slowest for the small list of 500 items. Then we could see what is for the medium list. Then you can see it's always it looks like it's the same. Then we could pretend that large list that would be also the same result. But funny thing, when it comes to large amount of data, the hash set is quietly the fastest. I have also done this for quite larger lists, but yeah, for presentation purposes, I shrink it way more down. But it goes exponentially up with the hash set. So I think 3 minutes are still left. 2 minutes? Okay. Then I skip the last test. It's fine for me. It would be a where query. Just as a sneak peek, I tested the link method, the pipe where method, the dot where method, and also the switch. As we have seen, we can iterate through files. Then why not search by the cases? So, but like I said, you can find it in my GitHub repo when I put it there. So if you want to try to get in touch with me, you can. Oh, I have to. Yeah, okay. Zoom it out. So, yeah, you can just scan me or just go to my link tree. And here's one announcement for the first 3 people for the upcoming GitHub repo who issue something, like they can do something faster, better. I'm always happy to learn. We'll get a copy, the first 3 ones, of the practical automation with PowerShell from Matthew Trost. Yeah, that's so far. Thank you.
And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about GitHooks, because yesterday I was giving a talk about Pester and Script Analyzer, and somebody asked, how can I make sure that if somebody pushes code to like a remote repository, that the test will automatically run? During the talk, I didn't have time to show it, but then this morning somebody said, well, there's still some community spots left and we need people. So I was like, okay, I'll make something, we'll make it work. So let's see if I can also zoom this. Yeah, a little bit. So does any of you ever looked into this .git folder before? Yeah, some people did. Yeah, especially the head document. If you delete this, it's going very well afterwards. So once on a black moon, I was looking in this folder, and I saw this folder called hooks. And I went into it, and there were a lot of nice documents in it, all called samples. So I just opened one. And it's a text document, so it should open, hopefully, yes. And there's a nice explanation about what it does and how I can make it work. These are actually in every Git folder. They're just there. And, well, this one is called apply patch message. And I've got several different of them here. Commit message, sample, post update. So this made me wonder, what actually are these? So I looked it up a bit, and these are called GitHooks. So when you're using Git for your source control, there's different stuff you do, like you do at one point git add, git commit, git push. Probably most of you have done this at some point. And these hooks are actually things you can do before or after you've done this command. So in VS Code, in the back, can you all read it, or do I need to zoom in more? Because I feel already uncomfortable with this zoom level. Yes, right? So yes, it's light mode. After this, I'm finally going to go back to dark mode. So I've made a little function, a get info, where A is better than B. And I've made some tests. So I check if ARM is better than bicep. And I check if bash is better than PowerShell. So I could just run these tests very quickly. And we would see that, well, apparently ARM is better than Bicep. This test goes through. Sorry, Barbara. But the other test fails. But I don't want to run this all the time. So I've made 2 of the Git hooks. So I've just taken these samples here. So for example, the pre-commit sample. And I've just created a new file called pre-commit. Without any extension, the .sample is the extension already. So they're just extensionless files. And you can see them here. It is a bash file, but I'm just calling PowerShell, and I'm running some PowerShell code in it. So for example, I'm running invoke pester. So if I'm making a little change in here, like hello, adding it, and we're gonna run git add, nothing happens. Now I'm gonna commit it. Sorry, I need to not have fat fingers today. Now it's taking a little while because it's actually triggering the Git hook. And you see that it actually starts doing the tests. But it still committed my messages. Because this Git hook, it ran, but there was not any error happening in the file, so it just went through. Now I've also made a pre-push version where I'm calling again PowerShell.exe. I'm calling invoke pester again, but this time I'm using pass-through. So pass-through makes sure that the information of pester will actually be send as output, and I'm checking if the result equals failed. And if it does, I'm just throwing an error. So now if I would do git push, it would take a little while. Then it should start running the tests. Yes, it's running the tests. And it actually said, exception, test not successful. So it didn't push. So if I look in my repository here, there's still no files in my repository. So my push was actually halted because it failed. To make it work, I would need to go back into my tests and actually say that bash is not better than PowerShell, or I think now it should work because now it says bash is better than PowerShell. We are adding it again, we're committing it. So let's see if it works. It's running a test. All tests were successfully. So now we're pushing it. And hopefully this works. I haven't been able to test this yet, so fingers crossed. Tests were successfully. It looks like it pushed something. And here it is. I've got files. So, yeah, you can applaud if you want. So, one more thing about the Git hooks. Normally, the Git hooks, they are set on your local machine. So, you set them in this Git folder, but if I push it, they won't be pushed to my repository. So, people have to set them up themselves. There is a possibility you can create, for example, a .githooks folder in your repository. And if you're running this command, so git config, and set the local core hooks path to the folder you created, from then on out, it will use the folder in your repository. So you could create a GitHooks folder in your repository and have like a setup file or something. So first-time contributors, they first run this file once, And afterwards, they will always use these GitHooks. It would make it easier than having them set it up manually all themselves. So those are some small tips and tricks about GitHooks, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Oh, and if there's any questions, of course.
We have 2 minutes, and as it happens, I have 2 questions.
Ah, great.
Okay. So, firstly, I work with developers, and they're a sneaky bunch.
Yes.
Can I just delete the pre-commits file for a while, and then I can carry on working?
Well, you could indeed just...
Repeat the question.
Good. So the question is, developers are a sneaky bunch. I think that was just... No, that question was also, what if they, for example, delete this GitHook? Would it still work? Yes, they could circumvent it. This is also why at my talk I suggested doing this on the remote repository instead of locally. And the second question?
So the second question is, if I don't have the version of Pester that you used to write with, what would happen?
So the second question is, what if I don't have the version of Pester, which I'm using? So I would always suggest to create some kind of initialization file if you're running your Pester tests, where inside this initialization file, you set up the right versions of Pester and other dependencies you're using, and from here on, then call it. So this way, you would also always make sure it's using the right version. I hope this answers your questions. Are there any other questions? Then I think now we're out of time.